It happened at my sister's engagement party, under those glittering lights and rows of carefully curated smiles. My daughter, just 10 years old, was slapped so hard by my own sister that she hit the ground, sobbing in front of 200 stunned guests. Not a soul stepped in. My parents didn't stop her. Instead, they turned to me, blamed us for the scene, and told us to leave. That was the night I realized I hadn't just lost my place at the table, I'd lost the illusion of family altogether. What came after that moment didn't just shatter their celebration, it cracked wide open the lies they'd been keeping quiet for years. This time, everyone witnessed it. My name's Patricia Morris. I'm 35, a widow, and a mom to a little girl who saved my life in more ways than I can count. This isn't just a story about a party that went sideways, it's about the night the truth came crashing down. The night I stopped pretending. The night the silence finally broke. If you passed me on the sidewalk, you'd probably think I've got things together. I live in a quiet Los Angeles neighborhood, in a modest 2-bedroom apartment that used to belong to my late husband. It's nothing fancy, but it's home. He died 3 years ago in a highway crash. One minute we were talking on the phone, he was telling me he'd be home late, and the next, I was standing in a sterile hospital hallway, staring at a death certificate with his name on it. Since then, it's just been me and my daughter, Jennifer. She's 10 now. Smart, sensitive, always doodling in her sketchbook. A little shy around strangers, but with these big, observant eyes that catch everything. I've done everything I can to give her a life that feels steady. I work from home as a freelance digital illustrator, so we've carved out our own rhythm, cereal and cartoons in the morning, Saturday visits to the library, and late-night Disney movies with popcorn on the couch. But peace like that? It's fragile, especially when your own family sees you as the black mark they'd rather erase. My parents, Elizabeth and David, never forgave me for marrying someone who didn't come from money. To them, he was beneath us. They barely spoke to him when he was alive. And once he was gone, it was like I'd chosen grief just to spite them. Then there's Mary, my younger sister. The golden child. Blonde, polished, perfect. A lifestyle influencer now, with a curated feed and nearly 2 million followers who eat up every filtered photo and heartfelt caption. She's their crown jewel. I was always just the other daughter, the one they kept in the background. Then, out of nowhere, a fancy cream envelope landed in our mailbox. It smelled like perfume and money. Inside was a formal invitation. You are cordially invited to the engagement celebration of Mary Morris and Michael Jordan. No note, no warm greeting. Just a name, a time, a place, and a reminder that I was still barely on their radar. Jennifer was dancing around the kitchen when I opened it, her socked feet sliding across the linoleum like she was skating. She glanced over and caught sight of the envelope. "Is that from Grandma?" she asked, her face lighting up with hope. I paused. "It's from Aunt Mary. She's getting engaged." Jennifer's eyes sparkled. "Are we invited?" I wanted to say no. I wanted to toss it in the trash. But instead, I forced out a smile. "Yeah, sweetheart. We are." At the time, I had no idea how much that decision would change everything. Jennifer spent the next few days obsessing over her outfit. She finally picked a lavender dress with little embroidered daisies on the sleeves, the same one she wore for her school recital. She twirled in front of the mirror like she was soaking in sunlight. "Do you think Aunt Mary will like it?" she asked, all innocence and hope. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. "She'll love it, honey." What I didn't say was, if she even bothers to look at you. The skyline rooftop was just what I imagined, glitzy, over the top, and icy. Glass walls surrounded the space, showing off a glittering Los Angeles skyline. Soft jazz played low in the background. Waiters floated through the crowd with gold trays stacked with fancy drinks and delicate snacks. Jennifer clutched my hand as we stepped inside. Right away, I felt it, the tension. People noticed us, but not in a kind way. There was this shift, like we'd brought in a draft no one wanted. Eyes flicked in our direction. Smiles tightened. It was clear we didn't belong. Then I saw my mother. Elizabeth stood near the bar, wrapped in navy satin, her hair pulled back so tightly it looked painful. She walked toward us with a look that could freeze a flame. She gave me the faintest nod, more like a flick of the chin, and then turned to Jennifer. "What are you doing here?" she hissed, just loud enough for us to hear. "This is an upscale event, not a daycare." Before I could react, she placed a hand on Jennifer's shoulder and gave her a little shove. Not violent, but enough to knock her off balance. Jennifer, already jittery, wobbled on her feet. And that's when everything went sideways. The glass of red punch she was holding slipped from her fingers. It flew through the air in a slow-motion arc, then splashed straight onto Mary's ivory dress. Gasps echoed around the room. Mary just stood there, staring at the stain spreading across her torso like a bloodstain. Her eyes snapped to Jennifer. "You stupid little girl," she screamed. "Do you even realize what you've done? You ruined my dress." Without even pausing, she raised her hand and slapped Jennifer across the face. The crack of it rang out like a gunshot. Jennifer yelped and collapsed into sobs, her hands flying to her cheek. Her whole body folded in on itself, like she was trying to disappear. I dropped to my knees, pulling her into my arms. "What the hell is wrong with you?" I shouted at Mary, my voice shaking. Before she could respond, my mother cut in, stepping between us. "You never should have brought her here," she snapped. "You've caused enough humiliation for one night." My father, David, stepped up beside her, his expression carved from stone. His voice was flat, unreadable. "Take your daughter and leave." I stood there, barely able to steady myself. My legs were trembling, my voice shaky. "Please, I just need to explain." "No," my mother snapped. "Security." Two men in black suits appeared almost instantly. I didn't fight it. I scooped up Jennifer, still sobbing, and held her close to my chest as we were led out of that glittering rooftop like we were criminals, like we'd done something unspeakable. Behind us, I could hear it all, low murmurs, phones snapping pictures, the soft clink of champagne flutes. Mary stood there like a statue, her gown soaked and clinging to her body, her lips twisted with disgust. Just before I reached the exit, I caught a glimpse of someone familiar in the crowd, Susan, a friend from my college days. Her face was pale. Her phone was raised. She was recording. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed in total silence. The only light in the room came from the street lamp outside, casting a tired orange glow through the blinds. Jennifer had cried herself to sleep. Her cheek still carried the red imprint of Mary's hand. I dabbed at it gently with a cool cloth, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I stared at the walls of our little apartment, our sanctuary. It was all I had left from the life I built with my husband. There were Jennifer's drawings taped up like tiny murals, a wobbly bookshelf he once built for us, and a crooked photo of the three of us at the beach, all sunburned smiles and laughter. And I'd walked her into that nightmare. I had let them hurt her. I was drowning in guilt when my phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was a message. "Susan, hey. I don't know if you saw me at the party, but I recorded what happened. All of it. I couldn't just stand there. Do you want me to send it?" My breath caught in my throat. My fingers hovered over the screen. Yes, I typed. Just one word, but it felt like a lifeline. Seconds later, the video downloaded. I tapped play. There it was, all of it. The sound of the crowd, the tension, my mother's cruel whisper, Jennifer stumbling, the glass slipping, the splash, the slap. My scream. Their cold dismissal. Security dragging us out. My daughter sobbing in my arms. It felt like watching a horror movie where the villains were people I once called family. Tears rolled down my cheeks, but this time, it wasn't grief that fueled them. It was anger. Pure and blinding. I watched the video again, studying each frame. Mary's fury. Elizabeth's commanding snarl. David's stone-faced silence. And behind them, Rows of guests, some watching, some filming, all doing nothing. I got up and walked into the living room. Jennifer was curled up on the couch, hugging her stuffed fox close. Her eyes fluttered open as I knelt beside her. "Mommy," she whispered. "I'm right here, baby," I said softly. She looked at me with those big, searching eyes. "Was it my fault?" "No," I said, firm and clear. "Not even a little." She was quiet for a beat, then said, almost in a whisper, "I didn't mean to ruin anything. I just wanted to be part of the family." That broke something in me. I pulled her close, wrapping my arms around her like I could shield her from the whole world. And then, she did something I'll never forget. She sat up, reached for my phone, and opened the video. Her voice was soft, but there was steel beneath it. People need to know what really happened. She turned the camera on herself. Her cheeks were still puffy, red from crying, but she spoke clearly. "My name is Jennifer. I'm 10 years old. Yesterday, I went to my Aunt Mary's engagement party. I spilled a drink by accident. She hit me. Then they made us leave. That was it. No drama. No theatrics. Just the truth, plain and powerful." My hands trembled as I held the phone. Susan had done her part. Now it was up to me. I didn't know what would come of sharing the video. But I knew one thing for sure, I was done staying quiet. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the blinds like nothing had changed. Warm. Indifferent. The world kept turning, even though mine had cracked open the night before. Jennifer was still asleep when I opened my laptop. I sat down, took a deep breath, and typed into the search bar, "Child assault lawyer near me." I'd never filed a lawsuit before. I wasn't that kind of person. But I wasn't just a mom anymore. I was her protector. Her shield. By noon, I had a consultation booked with attorney Jessica Caris, a child advocacy lawyer Susan had recommended. She specialized in abuse cases. When I told her what happened, she didn't blink. "You have video evidence?" she asked calmly. I handed her my phone. She watched in silence. When Mary's slap cracked through the tiny office speakers, she paused the video, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "We'll press criminal charges against Mary Morris for assaulting a minor. And we'll add charges of emotional neglect and child endangerment against Elizabeth and David Morris for their part in it." She said it like a surgeon about to make the first cut, steady and certain. That evening, I sat Jennifer down and explained everything. "This isn't about revenge," I told her gently. "It's about making sure they can never hurt you or anyone else again." Jennifer clutched her stuffed fox and nodded slowly. "Will we win?" she asked. I smiled, brushing her hair back. "We already did," I whispered, "the moment you told the truth." By the next day, we had a restraining order filed. Mary, Elizabeth, and David were legally barred from coming near us or contacting Jennifer in any way. Attorney Caris submitted the video to the court along with Jennifer's recording. We filed under the California Child Protection Act in Family and Juvenile Court. Caris explained that striking a child, especially when you're not their guardian and especially at a public event, was a criminal act. And since my parents did nothing to stop it and instead helped push us out, they were just as responsible. This wasn't just a court case. It was a declaration. You don't get to hurt a child and walk away. Later that night, I got a call from a court-appointed child welfare officer. She'd watched the footage. "We'll be coming by for a home visit," she told me gently. "Not because we doubt you, but because we want the court to see that this child has someone in her corner." I looked across the room. Jennifer was at the table, coloring peacefully. "She does," I said. My voice didn't shake. And I had no idea what was coming next. Before anything went public, Susan asked me straight up if I was okay with her sharing the video online. At first, I hesitated. I didn't want our pain turned into some viral spectacle. I wasn't looking to feed the internet outrage machine. But then I watched Jennifer's video again, just 10 years old, sitting there with her voice steady and her eyes full of hurt that ran deeper than her years. There was strength in what she said. There was truth. "This isn't revenge," I told Susan. "It's the truth." That's all. That night, she posted it. First came Jennifer's quiet words, then the unfiltered footage from the party. No background music. No edits. Just raw, ugly reality. The punch, the slap, the silence that followed. By sunrise, the video had racked up more than 200,000 views. By lunchtime, #JusticeForJennifer was trending on every platform you could think of: Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. Parenting bloggers were reposting it. News sites picked it up. Advocacy groups started weighing in. Even celebrities chimed in. Disgusting behavior. She's a child. People weren't just watching, they were furious. Why didn't anyone step in? How could a room full of people let that happen? This is what some families look like behind their perfect smiles. And beneath all of that noise, there was one message that kept showing up again and again. "Jennifer, we believe you." Of course, Mary had to respond. It took her 2 days to upload a video to her page. The lighting was soft, piano music playing faintly in the background. Her makeup was done in that carefully messy way, smudged, just enough to look like she'd been crying. Her voice trembled. "I'm deeply sorry for how things appeared," she began. "I was under a lot of pressure. There was a misunderstanding. I love my niece." She never once said Jennifer's name. Not once. She never mentioned the slap. Instead, she hinted that the footage had been edited to make her look bad. That it was all part of some bitter campaign to sabotage her image. Then came the part that made my blood run cold. She implied I had coached Jennifer to act out. That I'd encouraged her for attention. I was shaking watching it. Jennifer looked up from her coloring book and said, calm as ever, "She's lying." "I know," I told her. "So does everyone else." Mary's crocodile tears didn't work. Her comment section blew up. She hit a child, and now she's playing the victim. "Patricia, we believe you. We believe your daughter. Keep your fake tears." The internet has receipts. Her follower count started plummeting. Sponsors dropped her. Product launches were canceled. In less than 48 hours, every brand linked to her issued public statements condemning her behavior. It was a social media firestorm. But for once, it wasn't burning us. Susan called me later that night. "They thought they could control the story," she said. "But you rewrote the ending." I didn't pop champagne. I didn't smile wide and laugh. But I could breathe. Jennifer looked up at me that night and asked, "Are we safe now?" I nodded. "We're getting there." It was 3 nights after the video went live when I heard the knock. I wasn't expecting anyone. I checked the peephole and froze. It was Michael, Mary's fiancé. Or maybe not anymore. He stood in the hallway in the same dress pants and shirt from the engagement party. No jacket. Tie loose. He looked wrecked, somewhere between lost and horrified. I opened the door slowly. "Hi," he said, voice low. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" I didn't answer. I just looked at him. "I saw the video," he said. "And everything people are saying." I didn't know what to say at first, but I had to come here. I stepped aside and let him in. Jennifer was on the couch, curled up with her stuffed fox. She spotted him right away, but didn't say anything. Michael walked over and knelt beside her. "I'm so sorry, Jennifer," he said softly. "What happened to you was wrong. All of it. And I think you were incredibly brave to tell the truth." Jennifer nodded just slightly, eyes cast down. Then Michael turned to me. "I didn't want to believe it," he said. "But once I saw it, I couldn't ignore it." I offered him a glass of water, which he didn't touch. He looked like a man who hadn't slept. "There's more," he said. After everything blew up, I couldn't shake the feeling something else was off. I remembered Mary had talked about working with a PR team for the wedding, so I went through our shared email folder from the planning. He showed me his phone. Email after email between Mary and her manager. She had been negotiating a $500,000 brand deal using the wedding content, without telling him. She even talked about pushing for a prenup that heavily favored her. Once the publicity cooled off, Her plan was to cut ties and move on. I felt like the floor tilted. She never really loved me, he said. She loved what I could offer her brand. I didn't know what to say. Then he added, I broke it off this morning. I told her mom. I've already ended all business deals and pulled out of every contract. From the couch, Jennifer asked softly, so you're not marrying Aunt Mary? Michael looked at her with so much gentleness it hurt. No, sweetie, I'm not. Then he turned to me one last time. You were right, Patricia. About all of them. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it. And with that, he left. And for the first time in years, I felt like someone had finally stood beside me. Not because they had to, but because it was the right thing to do. 3 days later, an email landed in my inbox with urgent in the subject line. It was from my father. Subject: we need to talk. This has gone too far. A private resolution meeting has been scheduled. Attendance is expected. No apology. No concern. Just a demand. Normally, I would have deleted it on site. But not this time. I forwarded it straight to Attorney Karis. Her reply came fast. If you go, don't go alone. So I didn't. Not emotionally. Not legally. I arranged for Jennifer to stay with Karen, my neighbor and friend, for the afternoon. Just in case. The meeting was held in a sterile office space in Beverly Hills, the kind of place that looked expensive but said nothing. Neutral ground. When I walked in, Mary sat with her arms crossed, oversized sunglasses hiding her face like shame could be blocked out with lenses. Elizabeth was dressed in cream and wearing her most practiced expression of concern. David didn't even bother looking up. I sat across from them. Calm. Composed. Mary broke the silence first. You've embarrassed this family beyond belief. I didn't say a word. You let your daughter post lies about us, my mother said, her voice sharp and hollow. They weren't lies, I said, firm and calm. They were the truth you didn't want the world to hear. Elizabeth exhaled like I was the exhausting one. This didn't have to be public. It could have been resolved privately. Like adults. You mean buried? I asked, meeting her eyes. Just like everything else you didn't want to deal with? Her face twisted. You're being cruel. No, I said, leaning forward. I'm just not covering for you anymore. You're doing this to shame us, she hissed. I didn't flinch. No. You did that on your own. And right then, the door opened again. Michael walked in. Every head turned. Mary froze. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. I think I've heard all I need, he said, walking to the table, his voice low but steady. Mary, you used me. You tried to use Jennifer. And when people saw the truth, you lied again. He placed a folder on the table with a quiet finality. Those are official notices. Every contract, every business deal, we're done. I've pulled my funding. The wedding's off. Mary opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Her confidence had cracked completely. David tried to jump in. Michael, this isn't the time for dramatics. Michael turned to him with a hard look. This whole family's been a stage show. I'm just pulling the curtain down. I stood up to leave. Mary's voice, bitter and desperate, chased me across the room. This is what you wanted all along, isn't it? To take everything from me. I paused at the door. Looked back, not angry, just done. No, I said. I just wanted to be loved. But you all made that impossible. So now? I'm choosing peace instead. And I walked out. In the next room, Jennifer sat at a small table with Karen, coloring quietly. When she saw me, her eyes lit up. She ran to me like nothing bad had ever touched her. And I held her tighter than I ever had. That meeting wasn't closure. It was liberation. A final exhale on years of holding my breath. The next morning, the light through our window felt different. Not harsh, not mocking. It felt kind. The kind of light that tells you it's okay to start over. Jennifer was still wrapped up in her fox blanket, sleeping peacefully, one arm flopped over her head. Her face looked younger somehow, like she'd finally let go of something, too. For the first time, the apartment didn't feel like a leftover piece of my old life. It felt like the start of something new. I brewed coffee and sat at the kitchen table, laptop open, ideas already bouncing in my head. I'd been freelancing for years, but something in me wanted to create something that meant more, something that spoke to who we were now. That's when I started drafting the idea for an online shop. I didn't want it to just be pretty prints. I wanted it to speak for people like us, quiet fighters, survivors, moms who were tired but trying. Digital illustrations. Quotes that hit the heart. Art kits kids could play with on rainy days. I called it Z plus E Studio. We launched small, but within a few weeks, we were growing fast. 10,000 followers. Study orders. Parenting blogs started reposting my designs. A children's nonprofit emailed me, asking if we'd collaborate. Jennifer started designing her own little doodles, foxes, stars, smiling kids holding hands. We turned them into sticker packs, and she'd proudly ask, "Do you think other kids will like these?" "They're gonna love them," I'd tell her. And they did. People who once shared our story now supported our future. Karen became something like family, steady, present, warm. Susan checked in weekly, always with a laugh and a batch of cookies. Mary tried more than once to reclaim the narrative online, but her voice had faded. The world had moved on, and her version of events didn't hold up. My parents stayed quiet. I think they knew better than to test the boundaries again. The silence from their end was louder than any apology they never gave. But I wasn't angry anymore. Just free. One night, Jennifer and I were sprawled out on the floor with art supplies and snack wrappers everywhere. She looked up at me, serious all of a sudden, and asked, "Is this what normal is supposed to feel like?" I thought about it for a moment, then said, "No, baby. This is what safe feels like." She leaned against my arm, pencil still in hand, and whispered, "I like it here." And that's when I realized I hadn't just escaped something toxic. I had built something strong in its place. Something real. Something ours. A few days later, during a quiet afternoon, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to pick up. "Patricia," said a voice I hadn't heard in weeks. "My father." I didn't respond. "I've never been good with this," he said, voice low. But back at that meeting, I listened. "And for the first time, I really heard you." He paused, the silence stretching between us like a bridge we both knew wouldn't hold much weight. "I let a lot happen. And I didn't stop it. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed to say it. You didn't deserve any of it." I shut my eyes and exhaled. "Thank you," I said quietly. "But I'm not carrying this anymore." He let out a breath. "I understand." And then he hung up. No excuses. No begging. Just the sound of something ending. Later that night, I pulled out an old photo album from a box in the back of the closet. The edges were worn. Inside were years of pictures, birthday cakes, family trips, holidays that always seemed happier than they actually were. In most of them, Mary was front and center. In one photo, I was almost hidden behind the Christmas tree, half a shoulder, a blurry face. Even in memories, I was invisible. Jennifer curled up next to me and flipped through the pages. She paused at the photo and asked, "Why aren't you in more pictures?" I ran a hand gently through her hair. "Because they didn't really see me," I said. "Not the way I needed." Jennifer looked at the photo again, then turned to me and said, "I see you, Mom." That was it. The words I'd been waiting my whole life to hear without even knowing it. I pulled her close, and for once, I let the tears fall. Not because I was hurt. Not because I was sad. But because I was finally whole. The next day, I packed that photo album away, not to forget the past, but to make space for something better. For the life we were building now. A life rooted in truth. In choice. In love. A few weeks later, I did something I hadn't done in what felt like forever. I booked a trip. Just me and Jennifer. No obligations, no fake smiles, no guilt hanging over us like a storm cloud. Just the two of us, heading somewhere that felt wide and quiet and far away from everything. We went to Sedona, Arizona. It had been on my mind for years, a place I'd always dreamed of seeing. The red rocks, the wide open skies, the stillness of the desert. Something about it had always pulled at me. But life and excuses always got in the way. Not this time. We stayed in a little cedar cabin tucked under the cliffs, just far enough from the rest of the world. No neighbors, no noise, no one to please. Just space to breathe. Jennifer spent her days running along dusty trails, stuffing her pockets with colorful stones and pointing out animals in the clouds. At night, we bundled up in thick blankets and sat outside, sipping cocoa and tracing stars with our fingers. There was no Wi-Fi, no buzzing phones, no lawyers, no headlines, no echoes of betrayal, just wind and sky and silence that felt like healing. One evening, we sat on a wooden bench looking out over the valley. The sun was sinking low, painting everything gold. Jennifer leaned into me, her head resting on my shoulder, her legs swinging back and forth. "Do you think they miss us?" she asked softly. I knew who she meant. I didn't pretend otherwise. "Maybe," I said. "But sometimes people can miss you and still not be good for you." She didn't say anything for a while. Then she looked up at the sky and asked, "Will we ever see them again?" I took a slow breath. "Maybe," I told her. "But only if we don't have to shrink ourselves to be welcome." She nodded, her little fingers twisting the edge of her sleeve. Then she smiled, one of those quiet, knowing smiles only kids can pull off. "I like our world better." I smiled back. "Me too." And I meant it. That night at the rooftop party, I hadn't just walked out of a room. I walked out of a life that wasn't mine. A life filled with shame, silence, and bending myself into shapes that never fit. I stepped into something new. A life where my daughter knew her worth. A life where I finally knew mine. As we sat there, watching the stars wake up one by one, the desert wind moving softly through our hair, it hit me. This wasn't an ending. This was the beginning of everything.